Wonderful to be with you as you take us along with you throughout North America here on the road on Road Dog 146. About 11 till the top of the hour. Stephen Semple joins us in the next hour. He is the author of Raising Prices, very interesting comic book, and it's pretty cool. And he is also the founder of Empire Builders Program. The website is empirebuildersprogram.com. A lot of companies are raising prices seemingly endlessly now. What is driving up those costs? And it's stuff that you want, cereal, sodas, consumer packaged goods. If it's in a box and you eat it, it's going up, and people keep grabbing it up. And some people don't seem to care about the prices. So what's going on with that? What kind of psychology is at work? And as promised, Stephen Semple is going to be joining us here in just a little bit. He's the author of Raising Prices, which is a book that you might not expect when you see it. And, of course, he is behind Empire Builders Program, and the website is empirebuildersprogram.com. We'll be right back.
This is SiriusXM Radio. You're listening to SiriusXM Radio.
Live from the I-10 corridor, it's the Dave Nemo Show.
Earlier this morning, a couple of times I mentioned that Stephen Semple is going to be joining us, the author of the new book, Raising Prices, a different kind of book. Well, you'll understand what we mean by that. I kind of gave it away a little bit earlier. But prices keep going up. Are consumers going to keep buying? Is there a breaking point here? We've already talked about the fact that, people don't really grouse too much about the rising prices. We're kind of taking it as it comes, figuring, well, there's got to be a good reason for it, so okay. But that's going to end one day. I thought I was going to enjoy talking with Mr. Semple, but I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy it. We just had a brief conversation during the news, and I think you're going to enjoy the conversation here in just a moment. Stephen Semple joins us right after a quick break.
Daniel Mustafa here, Director of Technical Service for TA Truck Service. Winter is not kind to semi-trucks. Cold weather can affect batteries, air brake systems, tire inflation pressures, and even diesel fuel itself. We all prep, but winter can be unpredictable. So if the weather gets the best of your truck this winter, don't get left in the cold. Call TA Truck Service Road Squad at 1-800-824-SHOP. Anytime, any day. Our 24/7 call center will pair you with a nearby expert technician. Thanks to our network of Road Squad service trucks and qualified third-party providers, you will never wait long. Most repairs can even be done on the side of the road, from tires and mud flaps, to jump starts and air leaks, to electrical work and roadside diagnostics. In many cases, we will save you a trip to the shop and get you rolling that much sooner. You break down, we show up. TA Truck Service, Road Squad.
TA Petro, full service means at your service.
Since its introduction in 1996, the Volvo VN series has been a game changer, redefining expectations of what a truck can be. Whether it's the groundbreaking aerodynamic design, standard driver-side airbags, or the incomparable I-shift transmission, the iconic VNL has continued to set new standards for the industry. Here's to an amazing quarter century for the VNL and 25 even better years to come. Learn more about the game-changing VNL at your local dealer or volvotrucks.us. The creator of the Empire Builders Program and podcast and the author of Raising Prices, the new book, is with us right now, Stephen Semple. Hey, Stephen, good morning again.
Hey, good morning to you.
Yeah, I enjoyed our conversation, but I think it's going to get better here because we're going to get down to brass tacks. So we're all going through the same thing, only different now. And we are truly in the age of this never happened before. And you can draw a lot of parallels, but, and not just COVID, and that covers and colors everything, but we are entering into a new age, a new transition. We are going from human power to robotic power. We are changing from liquids pumped from the ground to electrons floating through the stratosphere. I mean, you can go on and on and on. But one thing's remain, markets are markets, and the first interactions between people, thousands of years ago were markets, and we're still talking about the market. But when we go to the market today, we don't know what to think anymore, do we?
Oh, it's confusing times, between, staff shortages and supply chain issues and, backlogs. Man, it is definitely a challenging time.
As you point out, to Fortune 500 companies, and we're talking the big boys here, and they have so many multiple brands, it would take us all morning just to read off the brand names under the banners of Pepsi, General Mills, Coca-Cola. They're raising prices, but one of the things that Fortune magazine did a report on is the fact that folks don't really seem to care, and is seem the pivotal word here.
Yeah, economists will talk about this. There's different types of demand, and one of the things that they'll talk about is demand being inelastic, which basically means when prices change, demand doesn't change much. And what we're seeing is traditional products like groceries and gasoline were things that typically, when prices moved a little bit, it really did affect sales a lot. And this time, we're seeing them move fairly dramatically, and doesn't look like there's much of a change in demand. I think, though, that's a short-term thing, and I think a lot of us are putting up with it because we believe that this is a short-term problem. The supply chain will get fixed, and prices will go back to normal, but there's a certain point when the consumer pulls out their wallet and opens up their wallet, and there's no money at the end of the month in the wallet, they're going to start getting picky about prices again. Something is going to have to give. Either it's going to have to be cut out or cut back because there's only so much cash to go around.
Indeed. Case in point, and boy, one thing leads to another, and none of these dominoes are isolated from the other. So when you hit that first one, they are all going down, and it's a big circle, and it's like a circular firing squad that we're in a sense, Stephen, I think. But case in point, I had a heart attack 8 years ago, and I eat a bowl of oatmeal every morning. So the price of oats now has gone up over 80%. First thing my wife says is, hey, you better buy some more oatmeal, like now, before the prices go way up, which is a good thing to do. But on the other hand, if I do that and take too much oatmeal off the market, more than usual, don't I now in turn cause even more of a price hike? You get what I'm saying? Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we saw that. Remember at the beginning of the pandemic, and everybody decided they wanted to buy extra toilet paper, and next thing you know, there was no toilet paper on the shelves, right? And then the price of toilet paper went nuts. So, yeah, it does become this domino effect. And I was recently, and it's really nuts, because last week I was in Los Angeles, and I was taken for this VIP tour of one of the military bases there, and they helicoptered us out. And it's one thing to read about, the ships backed up in the bay at Los Angeles, and it was another thing to see it. It was crazy. And you see all of that stuff backed up, and you wonder, when are we going to take care of all of this backlog?
And there are even more ships laying by off the coast of Singapore and Taiwan, and they're scattered all over the ocean, too. It's like, whoa, 500,000 containers in the port on the dock.
And this is definitely a contributing point to these increased prices. And companies are having to increase prices because the costs of the goods coming to them have increased dramatically. But I think there is an end to, there is a point where all of a sudden people are going to be really feeling the pinch and are going to have to start economizing, I guess would be the fancy word for becoming more frugal, cutting back on some things, and being really picky about prices on others. Where that point happens, no one really knows, because that's the point when somebody wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I got to start watching the money more. And that could be tomorrow, that could be a month from now, that could be 3 months from now. But I believe there's a point where that will start to happen.
in business, in trucking, the Small Business Administration puts a number out, puts a line down the middle of a page, and if you make more than $30 million in a year, you are considered large, and if you make less than 30 million, you are considered small, and that's how the SBA, breaks that up. And they do that for all of the industries and everything. So that kind of puts us into the area that I know you know a lot about, and that is the big versus the small. What about small businesses? Can they do what the big businesses do to any degree? And if not, what can they do to not just survive, but actually to continue to grow?
Yeah, this is an interesting time because these challenges are being faced not only by the trucking industry, it's being faced by every business out there, large, small, and otherwise, because especially when you compound, labor shortages and all these other things on top of it. My big concern that I have, especially for a lot of small businesses, is yes, we're seeing these prices going up, but it's also running in parallel, quite frankly, with a lot of declines in service. And businesses are getting away with that because that's what everybody's doing. The businesses that figure out how to still give a good customer experience and a good service level during this time are the ones that are going to win long term, because there will be an end to all of this, and consumers will remember who are the places that were good to them during that time and who are the places that they just felt like, well, you know what, I just have to give that money over because I have no choice. So we've got to think beyond today to who's going to be the long-term winner. And this is an opportunity for small businesses because they can be much more innovative about what it is that they do than large businesses.
One of the things, and as you know, roughly 90% of trucking is not just small in terms of income, below that $30 million line, but also small in terms of numbers of trucks. You'll have companies that have thousands of trucks, but over 90% have 20 or less, and then 90% of those have 6 or less. So the mom and pop model in trucking is still very strong, as it should be, and it's still one of the areas where you can actually be, entrepreneurship still survives and thrives in trucking, even though 50 years ago I heard the conventional wisdom that, the owner-operator trucker is a thing of the past. There are more small companies coming in now. And I realize that trucking is kind of on the other side of the equation in terms of pricing and service and all. But trucking is a service industry. Here in radio, we're a service to that service industry. What do you see in terms of trucking and on their side of the road, so to speak, as opposed to consumer goods? And of course, it's all tied together.
Yeah, and I think the biggest challenge facing, and look, we saw this recently from the American Trucking Association's chief economist, where they published how big the driver shortage is. And we've seen this coming for a lot of years. 5, 6, 7 years ago, a lot of the associations were talking about the average age of truck drivers and how truck drivers were aging, and there was a real challenge in the industry to bringing new people into truck driving. And I think ultimately the challenge for the truck driving industry is attracting drivers. And that's a marketing challenge because it's about making people realize how good a career you can have in truck driving and how there's good money that can be made in truck driving. And yes, it can lead to very entrepreneurial things. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And I think the industry and the businesses, if they want to attract new and fresh talent into the industry, are going to have to look at this as being a marketing challenge. Government's not going to fix this problem. The association's not going to fix this problem. This problem is going to be fixed by making it look attractive and making people realize that this is actually a decent career path for a lot of people.
It's interesting because we're kind of circling back again to that CTA report that we talked about earlier this morning. And the name of the program is Trucking has changed. You can read a lot into that. We're going to take a real quick break right here, and we're going to kind of change gears a little bit too, because I'm going to ask you about the Empire Builders program. Stephen Semple is with us, and we'll be right back.
This is Ton Ostegard, Chairman and CEO of Creek Carrier and Schaefer Trucking. Our companies have quality freight, and we need more drivers. But not just any drivers. Safe drivers with no DOT preventable accidents or CDL violations in the last year. Experienced drivers who don't switch jobs on a whim. And reliable drivers looking for top pay and benefits from a carrier with long-term strength and stability. Are you the one we're looking for? If so, head to creekcarrier.com to get started.
I'm an ex-truck driving guitar picker, and I'm a-moving on.
We now take you to the side of the road, anywhere, USA.
Hey, Zeke, how many headlights you written up tonight?
Not a one, Rafe, but I'm waiting.
Yeah, me neither. Seems like we got us an outbreak of lighting bugs.
Lighting bugs? You mean those little black boxes truckers plug into the headlights that automatically converts high beams to low beams when their bulbs burn out?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
At $99 a pair, that's going to be a problem for us.
Gonna be a bigger problem when folks find out Nemo's got a special code for $10 off.
Well, I hope nobody tells him to go to RadioNemo.com, click on Lighting Bug, and use promo code NEMO, because if they do,
it's gonna be a long night.
Road Dog 146, Dave Nemo with you, the Dave Nemo Show from Radio Nemo of North America. Stephen Semple is with us. He heads up Empire Builders Program. The website is empirebuildersprogram.com. Also, the author of Raising Prices. We're going to talk about that too, Stephen, but tell us about the EBP, the Empire Builders Program.
Yeah, it's here's my philosophy on it. In the Empire Builders Program, we also have a podcast that I do once a week that highlights this, the Empire Builders Podcast. And the whole idea is that what I do is I've taken a look at all sorts of really big companies in terms of they're big today, but instead of looking at what are they doing today, what did they do back when they started, back when they were small, that made them the empire they are today? And how can we take those ideas and apply it to today's small business? Because there's a lesson in each one of those stories, and that's what we cover in the podcast. And in the program, that's where we work with owner-operated businesses that are really interested in changing their industry, breaking out, becoming that future empire.
Indeed. In fact, Chuck Kuhn was with us yesterday morning on the program, one of our sponsors here on the program. But he had a real bad moving experience. His dad was working internationally. He lived in Europe, and they came back home to the U.S., and most of their stuff was broken or missing and just bad stuff, And at 16 years old, in his mom's basement, he started a trucking company, which is now one of it's the largest independent moving company. They've moved presidents. So, and most of the big names, in a lot of companies, especially trucking, you started with one young guy usually, and in some cases in their mom's basements. So to your point, that can still happen in this industry and many others, but trucking, I think, leads the pack in terms of the opportunities.
Absolutely. The opportunities are absolutely there. And the real success comes from, as you're saying, you see something that's not working quite right and figuring out a way to fix that problem. And when you figure out a way to fix that problem, people will pay you a real premium price for your service and be happy to do so because you've basically removed their headaches. You've removed their pain. You take away people's headaches, you take away people's pain, they're happy to pay you a premium price for that.
It's interesting, too, because we are keen on investing. We want to invest. People want a 401k. They like that Social Security. We've invested in that through our lives. But you can buy something take it home or use it or whatever, or you can invest in something. And I think that is the difference here. You know, it's the human investment is what counts.
You know, most wealthy people in the United States, yes, some have inherited their money, but that's a small percentage. Yes, some are celebrities. That's, again, a small percentage. The biggest bulk of really wealthy folks in the United States have come from owning and operating and building successful businesses. And most of those businesses started really tiny.
Yes, indeed. And you know, again, other places have kind of shut down those opportunities, but trucking remains. And, you know, the opportunities for folks who are today, and, you know, to that Canadian Trucking Alliance thing, changing the image of trucking. You know, some folks say that people don't want to do anything anymore that don't require more than a mouse and a keyboard. And pretty soon, people will be driving trucks with mices and mouses or whatever you call them and keyboards because of the coming technology. But, you know, we got to get from there to here. And, boy, there's a big gap between here and there now, you know, with the major transition that we are seeing technologically and how it's going to impact our sociology.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges, especially for any of the trades type professions, which maybe I'm incorrect, but I put truck driving in that along with, you know, many of the building trades. And I remember, you know, when I went to high school, and I've got, you know, very little hair and what's left is gray, there was that the schools exposed people to the trades, and not everybody is interested in academics, and those folks will look at it and go, wow, I could do a trade instead and get a great job and all those other things. And today, like my youngest daughter's finishing up high school, in the high schools today, certainly where I am, none of that is being exposed to kids. So of course they're coming out not thinking about drywalling or truck driving or any of those other things because they're just not being exposed to it. And I think that's a tragedy because for many people, it is the ideal career for them and an opportunity to do well and contribute to society and all those other things.
You know, you remind me of something here to almost go. I want to talk to you about Raising Prices, the book here quickly, but very quickly. We were talking about some of the great storytellers of the past earlier this morning. Folks like Justin Wilson, Charlie Douglas, Jerry Clower. And Jerry Clower told a great story about a doctor who called the plumber to his house. The plumber comes in, and he works under the faucet for about 5 minutes and says that'll be $200. And the doctor says, sir, I'm a doctor, I'm a physician, and I don't make that kind of money. And the plumber says, hey, when I was a doctor, I didn't make that kind of money either. I did not do that justice. But you do some things justice. You do comic books justice in Raising Prices. Tell us about how did that happen?
You know, there's a message I wanted to share with the world because there's a proper way to go about raising your prices that will also set you apart from your competition and that customers will like, and that's what we talk about in the book. But what I felt like is the world did not need another boring business book. So I decided, how could I do something a little bit different? I'm in marketing, you got to stand out, do things different. And I decided, you know, I'm going to do a comic book. And so I've took comic book writing courses. I've read tons of books on comic books and decided to create this business book that's a comic book. And the funniest thing is everybody will say, oh, you mean like a graphic illustrated novel? I'm like, no, it's a comic book. And what's always funny is watching people's eyes when I hand them one. Because first thing they'll say is, wow, this is just like a DC comic. I'm like, yeah, right? You know, it's
exactly.
So I decided that I wanted to do something that was different. And the other thing is very easy to consume the information. Like you read it, it takes 10 minutes to go through it and you get the ideas pretty quickly.
Well, and even if you have no interest whatsoever in pricing, raising them or lowering or going into business, The full page ad for the Green Army Men is worth the price of admission. On that, we are out of time. Stephen, thank you so much. The website to catch the book and everything else is empirebuildersprogram.com. empirebuildersprogram.com.